Recovery is about building a life so meaningful, so fulfilling that you don't want to escape from it. That's what real recovery is. It's about healing what's going on the inside at the root level. What's the reason that you acted out with porn in the first place? That is real recovery. So it's important to distinguish between abstinence and recovery because they feel very different. Abstinence can feel like this repressive, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to touch it kind of thing. Recovery feels so much more liberating. It feels expansive, grounding. There's clarity. On today's episode of Unhooked, celebrating 150 episodes of the podcast, 10 lessons that I've learned from over 300,000 downloads. So stay tuned. So what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Unhooked podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lipkowitz. It is a beautiful Monday morning here in Bangkok. Today's episode is a very special one. I am doing a celebration episode. This is episode 150 of the podcast, and so I wanted to take some time to celebrate where we've come, to appreciate all of you guys out there, and to share some of the biggest lessons that I've learned along this journey. So before we dive into anything else, before I share some of these lessons, I want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you so much to all of you who listen to this podcast and make this possible. I still remember starting off, in Amsterdam with this crazy idea of starting this podcast about porn addiction. And I remember when I first hit 1,000 downloads, and that was wild to me. It was absolutely incredible to know that people were listening to this podcast. So to know that we're here now over 300,000 downloads, we're actually past a third of 1 million downloads on the podcast, 150 episodes, gone way past any expectations I had for where this podcast would go. So I'm just incredibly grateful to all of you out there who are listening, who are sharing this, who are leaving reviews, sending in your comments. Special thank you to those of you who do message me and just let me know how this is impacting your life. So often I get these messages from you guys where you're saying, hey, this really changed my life. It helped me in my relationship. And I really appreciate all of those messages, all those comments, because the truth is this podcasting thing sometimes can feel a bit lonely. I don't always connect with the listeners. I don't know who's listening out there. And so it's just really great to hear from you guys and to know that this is making a difference in your life. So huge thank you to those of you who are listening and who have supported me along this journey. In today's episode, what I want to do is just share a few of the biggest lessons that I've learned along the way. Things that really changed my life, have changed the lives of my clients and the people who I work with. These are some of the most important lessons in recovery from porn addiction. So you could also see this as a starting point. If you're starting your journey with porn addiction recovery or any kind of recovery, these 10 lessons will really be helpful along the way. And they might also just be good reminders, things that you've heard a million times before, but you forget. So we all need these reminders. So without further ado, here are 10 lessons that I've learned from 150 episodes. Lesson 1, you are not broken. You are not broken. You are human. This is probably the most important thing that helps us let go of shame, is realizing that even if you struggle with porn, even if you struggle with compulsive behaviors or an addiction, you are not fundamentally broken. And look, I get it. I went through this as well, and I still go through this from time to time, of feeling inherently flawed in some way, feeling like there's no hope, feeling like there's something wrong with me. But I just have to remind you and remind myself also that there is nothing inherently wrong with you. You are not broken. Understanding that the brain was wired to seek dopamine, to seek comfort. And what's happened is this addiction, this compulsive behavior is simply a coping mechanism that has gotten out of control. It was something that helped you survive when you were younger, when you needed it, and it developed into a strategy that your brain, just kind of the default pathway. It thinks, oh, I'm experiencing a strong negative emotion. Let me find some escape. Let me grab my comfort blanket. So just because you watch porn or have an addiction, you are not broken. You're human. And honestly, recovery really begins when you can start to see yourself as human. Rather than seeing yourself as broken or flawed, when you can start to recognize, I'm not alone in this. And, this doesn't make me a bad person. This doesn't make me flawed. That's when your recovery can begin. Lesson number 2, willpower is not enough. Now, a lot of people, when they start with recovery, think, I just got to try harder. I got to white knuckle it. I got to use my willpower and then I can break free. But what we know is that yes, willpower is an important tool. It is something that is helpful in the path of recovery, but it is not enough on its own. It is not something that we can rely as the only method and strategy we use for a recovery. The reason is that it's just not strong enough on its own, because eventually willpower will break. It happens from time to time, and that's not a problem. It's not a failure. It's just that it doesn't always last, and it can't be strong enough for everything. So what actually works is a combination of things: willpower, getting connected with community, having accountability, using behavioral architecture, something I'll talk about a little bit later, but understanding your environment, and also changing your beliefs at the identity level. There are so many things that are important for recovery beyond willpower. So if you're stuck in your recovery, if you're continuing to relapse, it might be that you're focusing too much on willpower alone. Lesson number 3, shame and secrecy will keep you stuck in your addiction. Probably one of the biggest drivers of addiction is shame. This feeling like, I'm broken, I'm flawed, I can't be seen. If people knew the truth about me, they would run away, they would scream, they would call the police. And again, I know that feeling very well myself. When I was struggling with my porn addiction, when I was deep in my addiction, I had so much shame and I kept it all secret. Whenever I went and used porn, I never talked about it. I wouldn't tell a single soul, any friends, family members, therapists. I couldn't tell anyone. It was like my dark secret that I kept hidden. And this is one of the things that kept me stuck in that addiction. And that part of the healing work is learning how to open up, to be vulnerable, to share what you are going through. And that first time sharing can be incredibly scary. I still remember the first time I talked about my porn use to a colleague of mine in grad school. And it was terrifying, but at the same time, it was also deeply liberating. To be able to talk about something that I had kept hidden for so long, something I was so ashamed of, to be able to talk about it with a friend who listened and didn't judge me. And in fact, he just said, yeah, I struggle with that too. That did so much for my recovery, my deep recovery, not just my abstinence or sobriety from porn, but it did so much for my recovery, which is another thing that I want to talk about next. This is lesson number 4. Recovery is not abstinence. So a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that, okay, if I want to break free from porn, I just have to abstain. I just have to say no and be sober and build a streak. But the truth is, abstinence is not the same as recovery. Abstinence is withholding or abstaining from the behavior. It's saying no to a particular thing, but it's not actually doing the deep inner work of recovery. Recovery is about building a life so meaningful, so fulfilling that you don't want to escape from it. That's what real recovery is. It's about healing what's going on the inside at the root level. What's the reason that you acted out with porn in the first place? That is real recovery. So it's important to distinguish between abstinence and recovery because they feel very different. Abstinence can feel like this repressive, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to touch it kind of thing. Recovery feels so much more liberating. It feels expansive, grounding. There's clarity. So make sure you're understanding the difference between sobriety, and recovery. Lesson number 5, progress is not linear. Ups and downs and plateaus, these are all normal. Progress, does not look like just a single straight line up and to the right. There will be times where you relapse. There will be times where you feel like absolute crap. There will be times where you self-sabotage and you go against your values. That is okay. Understanding that progress is looking at the overall trend over months and over years. It's not just about, okay, am I always improving? Is my streak always growing? One slip does not erase all the progress you made. This is something I was just talking about in my community. If you make a slip, it doesn't negate all the work you've done. There are so many other ways that you're changing and growing and evolving. And so to not get hyper-focused on your streak, on your sobriety date, but instead to look at overall, am I becoming a better person? Am I strengthening my relationships? Am I being more honest? Am I living more from a place of integrity? One slip does not negate all of that. Also, to recognize every stumble, every slip can be an opportunity for learning. You can start to notice what causes you to slip, what causes you to act out. These are going to be powerful lessons, insights along the path of recovery. So to see them as, if anything, when you relapse, it's like a benefit. Oh, I've identified another place where I have a hole in my recovery. Fantastic, right? So that's lesson number 5. Progress is not linear. Lesson number 6, environment shapes your behavior. This is related to the willpower is not enough lesson or bucket, but really just understanding how important your environment is. And that not only is your environment one of the contributing factors to the addiction, but it can also be one of the main contributing factors to your recovery. The things that you put in your environment, the places that you walk by, the places that you go, and the people you put yourself around will have a huge impact on whether or not you act out. It's one of the reasons why I recommend guys to put their phone not in their bedroom when they go to bed, but to put your phone down in the kitchen, to put it in the car at night, to keep it out of your environment. One simple way of thinking about this is, let's say you're on a diet and you're trying to avoid eating sugary foods and you have a sweet tooth and you love donuts. If you walk by the donut shop every day, it's going to be so much harder to avoid eating that donut because the smells, the cravings, the temptation is going to be there. If you just don't walk by the donut store, it's going to be so much easier to stay on your path. So that's one example, removing triggers and then setting yourself up in environments that support your healthy habits. Sign up for a membership to the gym, move to a place that's near a park you can get outside and go walking. Finding these things that support your healthy habits and support your recovery. Success is about designing your life, designing the environment to make it so that the easy path is the right one. To put as much friction in the way of the unskillful behavior and to make the skillful behavior as frictionless as possible. Lesson number 7, community will accelerate your growth. Isolation, hiding, running away, being alone by yourself, these things fuel addiction. And the flip side of that is true as well. Connection fuels recovery. So men will definitely grow faster in community than they will alone. And this is why one of the most important things I recommend is to get connected to a community. If you're starting off on your recovery journey or any journey of self-improvement or personal development, to get connected with others, it is so much easier to do when you surround yourself with good people and with the right kind of people who can call you out on your bullshit and who hold you up to a higher standard and say, hey, I know you can do better than this. That is the combination we're looking for in community. So being around people who support you and challenge you and who also get it, being in a community like the Unhooked Academy, where the guys in the community understand what you're going through and they're not there to judge you, that is transformative as well because it helps you let go of shame. Lesson number 8, mindfulness is a superpower. When I went through my recovery, the most important thing I did was training in the foundations of mindfulness, the foundations of self-awareness, of emotional intelligence, really learning how to understand what was going on inside of me, understand what was going on with my emotions, why I was running away from things. Mindfulness is a superpower that gives you access to things that will be helpful for your recovery. On top of the self-awareness, what it gives you is that ability to choose how to respond. So one of my favorite quotes comes from the work of Viktor Frankl. He said, "Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is your power to choose your response. And in your response lies your growth and your freedom." So understanding that if you want access to that space, you have got to cultivate mindfulness. Mindfulness gives you the ability to notice what's happening in the moment, to pause and to ask yourself, how do I want to act in this moment? That short gap, that awareness is what creates inner freedom. And what we're after here in recovery is inner freedom. It's not, just not doing the thing. It's being free from the inside, being able to go anywhere, walk anywhere, see anything, and know that you are free from addiction from the inside. That is real recovery. Lesson number 9. This one might hurt. You can't outsource responsibility. You have got to take ownership. There is no magic silver bullet that any coach or therapist or community can give you. You have got to do the work yourself. Thinking that someone else is going to come save you or pointing blame at someone or something or some situation in your life is not going to help you recover. At some point, you have to take ownership of your life and your actions. Until you take ownership, nothing will change. You'll keep making excuses, looking at other people, saying it's not my fault, it's their fault. You've got to take ownership. And a helpful thing here is to understand it wasn't your fault, but it is your responsibility. You can have compassion for where you are and understand that the reason you are this way is because other people might have abused you, you might have been mistreated, maybe you didn't get your needs met. There can be so many things that did cause, the causes and conditions of where you are right now. It's okay to understand that. And at the same time, you've got to say, nobody's going to come do this work for me. I have to be the one walking this path. Lesson number 10, and I saved the best for last. Freedom is possible. The most important thing to have in this path of recovery is hope. Hope that change is possible. Hope for a better future. If you don't have hope, you won't be motivated to do this work. You'll think that it doesn't matter what I do, I'm just broken, I'm always going to be this way, nothing's going to get any better. But if you have hope, if you fundamentally believe, yes, I can change, I can transform, that will make all the difference. And I've seen so many guys recover from this addiction. I've seen so many guys heal their relationships, heal themselves, live with deeper integrity and cultivate more meaningful lives. Hope is possible. So if you're struggling with that, again, get connected to a community where you see guys that have transformed, where you see the success stories. Listen to podcasts like this one, where you hear stories of people overcoming it. Find ways to cultivate that flame of hope within yourself. Freedom is real and possible, no matter how long you've been struggling, no matter how many times you've slipped or relapsed, freedom is possible. So remember that and have hope. So my friends, those are the 10 biggest lessons that I've learned from 150 episodes, over 300,000 downloads. So grateful for all the people that have come on the podcast, all the guest experts that I've gotten to learn from, all the people that I've gotten to work with along this journey, those of you who have joined the community, who I've worked with one-on-one. I'm just so grateful for all of you. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you are ready to go deeper, I would love for you to check out Unhooked Academy. It's the community that I built for men who want to quit porn without shame and build lives of discipline and freedom. You can learn more about the Unhooked Academy at unhookedacademy.com. And if you want more direct personal support and accountability, if you want my one-on-one attention, I've got a few spots open for one-on-one coaching. So for that, you can reach out to me at jeremylipkowitz.com/intro. And finally, once again, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining me on this journey. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, leaving reviews, sending me messages, all of it. So that's it for today, folks. We will catch you guys on the next episode of Unhooked.